Righty, so I'm going to talk about week 4 Monday night items, but because I just finished grading your Monday night items from week 3, I'm going to give you a little opportunity to fix something that several of you ran into. And if you ran into this anytime before week 3, you can fix it now. The key is going to be you have to fix it before the start of week 5. Okay? All right, so one thing I really felt like I was clear about, but obviously if a couple missed it, that happens. But is the importance of, well, especially on this item where you're showing your dev environments to, and I think where this got a little confusing was that you weren't using the web interface, you were using your local dev environments to place those print screens onto GitHub and then making sure you embed them. But let me show you, and this is why I'm here, how to, when you do this work of embedding, what you can do to see if it was done correctly is if you right click and you hit inspect, just like we did when we learned dev tools, okay? If you come over here and you see it listed like this from GitHub A2 public, great, okay? The thing I would say about this file, and this is just feedback, is this is where I also talked about making sure those file names don't have spaces. If you have this %20, that means in the file name itself you had spaces. And I've mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again. When somebody gives you a naming standard, follow it and understand why we do it, because notice how these URLs are just really hard to read. And sometimes we want things to be easily read, like for search engines and other things, but it's also just a naming standard. So this one is correct. Okay. So if I looked at another one, inspect, and this one's good. That's awesome, right? So what you want to do is on yours, do that same thing where you go to inspect. Okay. How do I know this one was not uploaded into GitHub and embedded? Is that it has scccinstructure.com and then the full file name, or the fully qualified. And in this case, when you attach, and I really wish I could almost remove the attach inside of there, but I can't. So this is part of what I want you to get used to, is also in resizing these files, right? I've talked about it. So make sure you get those pieces. If you've missed those before the start of week 4, I'll give you 1 week to fix those and let me know, and I'll be happy to go grade them. Okay. So, and this was such an important week, right? At this point, you're all working on this, so I won't talk about that yet. But here's for week 4, it shouldn't be a surprise. We're continuing on with the crash course on CSS and HTML. I just went through this myself like before, and this is way important, is you do the commits as I show I want them, okay? So you start at 1 hour 39, that's where we ended up last week, right? So you can go to the file. Now I have it open in another window. That's typically how I recommend doing it, right? So I just go here, and I think right? So what you can do here is you can just move the time. If it's not where it was before, just move it to where we're starting on this one. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then I've given you, like last time, a PDF, or sorry, a markdown of how I want you to do the commit messages and just other helpful stuff. Like one thing, when I do these heads up, generally I try to catch these when I go through it. But sometimes students let me know, like that happened last week on that video file for a student. And in this case, I give you a heads up about the way you write the link tag and the reference. And this is because of the way I have you set up the folders. If you put the / in there, what it does is it references the root. And because most of you are opening it like I'm showing it, this would break your CSS reference link. And so you would see that your CSS wasn't correctly rendering. Okay, so follow along with this stuff. One thing I want to show you, and by the way, this is such good content in my opinion, especially when you get to the end here about the specificity, easy to say, of that. okay, of CSS and how to do that. But I do want to show you this, and this is one of the things I believe is the next item, but I just want to show you, like here is my VS Code setup, and I have an H1. And you're going to learn some of these things starting in the next item, right? So how to make your coding experience better. And there's so much out there about how to be more productive, but one of them, of course, is using the built-in, if I wanted to say li and I wanted 5 of them, and I did that, that's a built-in emit functionality, and that makes your life so much easier so you don't have to write them. You could always cut and paste them. But here's the other thing, at least on my keyboard, Alt Command, which is on a Mac, you can Google this. But if I select that, then whatever I type inside of there, right, does now in this case it's you watching dev ed. It's really helpful because sometimes that's what he'll show, right? That you are just having the same content, and yes, you could cut and paste it, but that just makes life easier. Okay, and the other thing is that along the way when you're doing your commits, you do the git add, right? You do the git workflow, right? You do your git add, you do your git commit, and I'm up using the up arrow here, another productivity tool, right? So that, and that's something I was playing with a student the other day. But the git add and the git commit, you can just do those as you're following along here, and you don't have to do the git push until you're done. Okay, so just know that that's true on those. Okay, so now let's look at the next item because I think it's going to be what I was just talking about, which is, yes, getting better at coding, right? So there's so many things that can make you more effective, quicker, which quicker in this case is also just comes from the more muscle memory you get. So here's what I want you to do, right? Here's just some general suggestions, right? Figure out a more efficient way to code HTML and CSS. And here's just some suggestions, but please go out and find some because I always enjoy looking at some new content here, right? And really anything, just go to YouTube and search for productivity tricks with VS Code and you will get a ton. So here's what I want you to do. Find articles or videos, right, and the techniques and provide links and why you felt it was important to you, right? And do your post, do a substantive post here, right, about what you've learned. And more importantly than this is integrated into your coding. Like one thing I didn't even list here that I just showed is multi-line selection. So anyway, you don't have to do any print screens or anything like that. All you have to do is that here. Okay, so for the last item for this first Monday night in week 4, hard to believe it is week 4. I'm on week 3, week 4. Oh yeah, UTF-8. Boy, this is one of those topics that, it's just good to understand what UTF-8 means, and talking about ASCII and Unicode and the way we encode files and the importance of that. So, watch the video, find terms you want to learn more about, and do research. Now, let me just say a word on research. I'm noticing a trend where students, when I say do research, they generally take what the content from the sites and provide that in the discussion, and that's not the intent, right? The intent is for you to read that and write it in your own words, your own understanding, because it's easy to cut and paste something. It is harder and more meaningful, and you learn more when you actually write it in your own understanding. Okay, so that's what I'm going to look for. If you see me make comments or take off, it's that you didn't provide the links and I didn't feel like it was your words, your voice coming through. It was something that was cut and paste. So just don't do that. It's just not good. It's not good honesty in academic environments, and it's just not good for you, quite frankly. Okay, so those are your items for this first Monday of week 4. Hope this helps.